Shalom, shalom, Israel. I got a quick video on how to fight with different demons and different spirits. This is a Passover season, and we all know how that goes with different spirits and different demons. Coming out trying to test you, trying to take you down, try to at the end of the day try to take you out of this truth. You might have different spirits coming up on you from your wife, your kids. Um, you might have a dispute with your brother, in this truth, or it could be a coworker, supervisor, boss, mother, father. Um, hey, the list goes on and on, man. But we're gonna actually learn how to, fight these demons and spirits, man. Not just before Passover or after Passover. Hey, this is forever. For as long as you're in this truth, right, brothers gotta learn, brothers, sisters gotta learn how to deal with these spirits, man. We can't just let these spirits, jump on us and attack us, give us a left hook and a right hook and an uppercut, and now you're knocked out. You want to, you knocked down with a TKO. No, man, in this truth, man, you have to get back up. Why you can't stay down, man? Right? You can't stay down in this truth, man. These demons, man. Hey, they want to sift you out. They not your friends, man. Right, so you gotta learn how to fight these demons, how to fight these spirits. Hey, guess what? With the sword, right? So start off with the book of Mark. It's the book of Mark, chapter 1, and verse number 22. Start at verse 21. Now, this is when Yahweh Shai had left out of the synagogue and just got done, talking to the, assembling the apostles, the disciples. This is verse 21. It says, and they went to Capernaum, and straightway on the Sabbath day he entered into the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his doctrine, where he taught them as one that had authority, not as the scribes. So when you teaching this truth, man, when you dealing with spirits, hey, you have to have authority, man. Right? You have to come with boldness. You have to come with belief, faith, sternness. You have to be austere. You can't be soft, dealing with these different spirits, man. Right? Because these different spirits ain't coming to you soft. You got to make your forehead harder than theirs. It says, I'm going to read that again. For he taught them as one that had authority. And what is authority? Meaning power. You know how to control. You're in control. And you got to be in control of these spirits. And you might have a spirit on you. You have to learn how to control that spirit, man. What is a hateful spirit? You have malice towards your brother, where you got a lying spirit, a scoffing spirit, a drinking spirit. You got to know how to control that spirit. It says, and not as the scribes. And there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, saying, let us alone. What have we to do with thee? What have we to do with thee, thou Yahweh of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee who thou art, the Holy One of Yahweh. And so what? Guess what? These spirits, guess what? They know Yahweh Shai, man. Hey, they know Yahweh Shai on a first name basis. And they say, hey, what do they say, what do we have to do with thee? They don't want to deal with Yahweh Shai, because he knows how to cast out spirits. He knows how to cast out demons. That's why they said, are you coming to destroy us? They say, we know who you are. You're the Holy One of Yahweh. So, hey, when you read these precepts for your learning, when you read about Yahweh Shai and how he dealt with the healings and the rebukes, you have to follow him, because it's the blueprint on how to deal with these spirits. It says, and Yahweh Shai rebuked him, saying, hold thy peace and come out of him. It says, hold thy peace and come out of him. And when the unclean spirit had torn him and cried with a loud voice, he came out of him. Right? You see that? Just like that, the spirit came out of him. The spirit came out of that unclean man. It says, and they were all amazed, and so much that they questioned among themselves, saying, what thing is this? what new doctrine is this? Right? Because they was confounded. They never seen nothing like that when Yahweh Shai casting out spirits and casting out demons. It says they were all amazed, and so much that they questioned among themselves, saying, what thing is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority commanded he even the unclean spirits, and they do obey him. So you see that? Hey, Yahweh Shai had authority, man. Right? That's the second time how you read about Yahweh Shai having authority, having control, right, over these spirits. And guess what? They obey him. Because Yahweh Shai knew how to deal with these precepts. Whether it's about knew how to deal with these spirits, whether it's about precepts or whether he had to pray, whether he had to fast, right? He has, hey, you might, hey, with these different spirits, you might have to pull out the whole kitchen sink on their ass, man. You might have to, pray. You might have to fast. You might have to get some exhortation. You might have to have the whole body pray for you because, we read different chapters and it tells you that some of these spirits, you're going to have to pray. You're going to have to fast. You might have to do all of it. So, we have to be cognizant on how to deal with these spirits. I'm going to drop down to verse 34 because, hey, man, these spirits, man, there's different types of spirits, man. It just like, you can't get in my house with your house key. You're going to need my house key, right, to get into my house. It's the same thing with these spirits. Right, you got to know if you're dealing with a slothful spirit, then you got to use slothful precepts. Your boss is, getting on your nerves. He's making you angry, right? You got to know you don't bring out precepts for love your neighbor, love your brother. No, and you got to bring out different precepts to combat. How you dealing with your boss, man? Right? You might have to make your forehead harder than his. He may, Joshua Paul, go and clean the bathroom. Go and clean the bathroom right now, right? Or your rib telling you to get out my face. I don't like the way you cook my meal. Whatever the case may be, but you got to learn how to deal with these different precepts, learn how to different spirits, and know how to take these different spirits head on. Right, verse 34, and he says, and he healed many that were sick of diverse diseases, and cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak because they knew him. So he didn't even let these devils speak, man. Right? That's why you got to speak boldly to these devils. You got to face these devils, these spirits face to face, right? Because they knew him, right? These spirits knew Yahweh Shai. He knew how to deal with them. And guess what? These spirits, man, they not going I take that back, Salakia. So, we got to understand that, dealing with these different spirits, the Lord ain't going to put nothing on your plate that you can't handle. And these spirits can only do so much. They trying you, they tempting you, and they're gonna try to overthrow you. But again, you got to know how to deal with the precepts, right? You got to have faith. You got to believe. You can't be weak in the faith and have a weak mind, have a weak soul, because they will overtake you. They will overthrow you. I just get a book of Mark for the next couple chapters over. Mark 8, verse 33. It says, and this is when, I'm going to start at verse 31. This is when Yahweh I was telling Peter that, hey, he's going to have to, leave him. He's going to have to, he's going to die, and, 3 days he's going to return. And Peter really didn't want him to go. But Yahweh Shah was basically telling him, hey, man, you thinking carnally, right? You thinking like you thinking, as a man, but you got to, you thinking spiritually, be thinking of what the Lord's will is. All right, so let's go to, let me see, let's start at We can start at verse 32. It says, and he spake that saying openly, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him. So like it started verse 31. It says, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, of the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spake that openly, saying, and he spake that saying openly. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, get thee behind me, Satan. So guess what? Hey, the Lord knows that, that was Satan trying to tell him, hey man, we don't want you to, I don't want you to leave. But the Lord knows that, that's Satan. He's trying to, do opposite of what the Lord's will is. So Yahweh says, hey, get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of Yahweh. See that? It says, he savorest not the things that be of Yahweh. I mean, he's not thinking upon and meditating on the things of the Most High. Keep reading on. It says, but the things that be of man. Right? So he has a simple mind. He's thinking carnally. Right? He's not thinking about everlasting life right now. Right? He's only thinking about, Yahweh Shai being next to him, not understanding the prophecies that must be fulfilled, that must go on. It reads, and when he had called the people unto him with his disciple also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So again, we see Yahweh Shai, you got to be strong and stand up to these demons, man. You got to stand strong up to Satan. You're going to have issues within your household. You're going to have issues at job. You might have issues within yourself. Whether it's that pride spirit, fornication, lust, and you have to go to these different precepts and look yourself in the mirror and tell your spirit, hey man, hey, get away from me, fornication spirit. You got to be able to discern these spirits. Hey, come on, lust spirit, I see you. You might be on your phone, on Instagram, looking at a sports highlight, and then all of a sudden you go to the next highlight and you see, nothing but like half naked women out of nowhere. That's how Satan is. You get done watching a sports video, and out of nowhere you just see women half naked, and they be in thongs and bikinis. Hey, you have to learn how to, instead of entertaining that website or that page, whatever it is, you gotta say, hey, I see you, Satan. I see you, lust spirit. I see you, lascivious spirit. I know what you're trying to do. I'm not falling for it. And you gotta just scroll up, man. And that too comes with fasting. Because the more you fast and resist the flesh, because the flesh wants food, water, right? The flesh wants the carnal thing. Right. So the more you tell your flesh no and you afflict your flesh, then it becomes more easier for you to fight these spirits and resist these spirits. Let's get a couple more. Mark chapter 9, verse number. Let's get verse 29. Let's start at verse 25. It says, and when Yahweh Shah said the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. So you see, Yahweh Shah wasn't pleading with these spirits. Yahweh Shah would, excuse me, Ed, can you come out of him, please? Yahweh Shah wasn't doing none of that, man. Yahweh Shah wasn't begging. Hey, the Lord said, come, let me read that from the top. He said, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, thou dumb and deaf spirit. Why you calling these spirits dumb and deaf, man? Right? He getting on these spirits, man. Right? That's what you got to do, man. Hey, you stupid spirit, man. Get your ass out of here, man. Man, come out of that dude. Right? Come out of me. Hey, come out of my kids, man. Right? You got to rebuke these spirits, man. And the Lord wasn't playing, man. The Lord was austere, right? He had one, reading from the previous chapters, he had one that spoke, he was one that spoke with authority. It says, I charge thee, come out of him and enter no more into him. You see that? And it says, and enter no more into him. That's how much power the Lord had, man. And guess what? He gave us that same power. The same power that he gave the apostles, right? The same power he's given us, the same power that he gave us to heal people, to teach people, like the deep down parables and meanings. Hey, we got that same power, man. It says, and the spirit cried and rent him sore and came out of him. And he was as one dead. And so much that many said he is dead, talking about the man. It says, but Yahushua took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was come out into the house, his disciples asked him, right? His disciples asked him, and he arose. It's like it. I lost my. I'm gonna start at verse 26 again. It says, and the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, and so much that many cried, he is dead. But Yahushua took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was coming to the house, his disciples asked him privately, why could not we cast him out? So the disciples, like, man, they seen it, how Yahushua dealt with the spirit. And the disciples, earlier they couldn't do it. You read previously in the previous verses, hey, they tried it, but they couldn't do it. But what did Yahushua say? He said, verse 29, here's the point. He said it to them, this kind can come forth by nothing, right? Basically saying, hey, it's nothing you can do but by prayer and fasting. So with some of these spirits, it might not just be with the precepts. And you can't have a brother in this truth. He might be 6 months, a year in this truth. And, he's got, you know, heavy spirits that he's dealing with, right? Some things, he might not have to, deal with on a larger scale, on a larger level, right? Some things, he might have a small scale, like he might have a demon that he's dealing with. It could be, drunkenness, fornication, but they might not be strong on him. And some of the things he might be able to get rid of easily, like smoking weed, for an example, right? And it might be a level one demon. So he might be able to get rid of that. Some others are, different from others, but he might be able to easily get rid of that level one demon. It could be, he just, had a couple precepts. He heard the brother on the highways and hedges or seen the video. And he was like, oh man, that's nothing. That's easy. I heard that precept. Put down the weed, this and that. Genesis 1 and 29, he heard Wisdom of Solomon 16 and 12, Matthew 9 and 11. Like these different precepts, brother might have heard, and it just cut their spirit. And that's what happens when you hear these different spirits, different precepts, it cuts the spirit, and they no longer want to dwell in you, right? This is what we call the Bible, the sword. So you have to understand when to use and when not to use different precepts for these different spirits. So it says once again, this kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. So again, the Most High ain't gonna put nothing on your plate that you can't handle. So he might not put a level 10 demon on you, and most likely you 6 months a year in the truth. Now you might be 5, 10 years in the truth, and guess what? You might have that lust spirit, that lying spirit that might come on you, and it's a level 10 demon, not a level 1 demon, but a level 10. And with that level 10 demon, guess what you got to do? You might have to again, use the whole all the golf clubs that's in your golf club, right? I mean, in your golf bag, right? You might have to use a 9 iron, the 3, the hedge, the wood, or you might have to use different irons for these different demons, right? So in the same thing with this truth, you might have to use the precepts. You might have to call the brother up. You might have to ask for the brotherhood to pray for you. You might have to, pray seven times a day. You might have to fast multiple times throughout the week to deal with certain spirits. That's why the Lord said this kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. So some of these different spirits, again, you might just not have to deal with them by the precepts alone. You don't have to deal with the whole, you don't have to get the whole role, so to speak, to cast out some of these spirits. Because again, and these spirits is out here, especially when Passover is around. You know, these spirits for some reason, and we see it all the time. We seeing it how these spirits are destroying brothers. Taking brothers out the truth, letting them they giving brothers haymakers, man. Yeah, these spirits ain't playing around, man. These spirits is literally giving brothers haymakers, and they're not getting back up from it. So that's why it's important, not just to be, staying fast around Passover, but after Passover, you want to make sure that you continuing to stay fervent, you know, continuing to study and write down precepts, so you know how to deal, with these different precepts. Because again, if you hunting and you're trying to get, you want to try to take down a deer or a lamb, well, you're not going to use no butter knife, right? You're going to use, a mighty shank, right? A nice little sword to, what I'm saying, to get that lamb or bullock or whatever, right? To get that lamb, right? It's all about knowing which precepts to use to fight these different demons. It's all about knowing which sword to use, how to use. When you're in a battle, when you're in war, what do you have? You might have a helmet, you might have a shield, or you're gonna have your bucklers on your wrist. Um, again, all of these things are what they protect you from your opponent, and your opponent in this truth are these demons. And you fight these demons with different precepts, with the sword, with praying, with fasting, with correction, with rebuke, with studying. All these different things. And we see it. How Yahweh Shai dealt with them all throughout the scriptures with Paul. We're gonna get a couple precepts. These precepts are written for our learner to learn how to fight these spirits. So this is the blueprint. There's no excuse why these spirits should be ruling over us and taking over us again. We Israel, we Israelites. We are actual princes that has power with Yahweh Bashem Yahushua and has prevailed, right? And guess what? We're going to prevail through these spirits, man. These spirits that come upon us, whether it's you know, a sad spirit, a depression spirit. We got different. Hey, there's different precepts with dealing with depression. So when you don't have no money in your bank account, when your rib is getting on your nerves, when your kids are slothful, when you're slothful, that's why we say, make sure brothers is not surfeiting, doing things in excess, because these spirits love that when you're not tending to the Most High, when you're not praying, studying, reading, and fasting, doing the basic things for our learning. The spirits love it. They having a party, and guess what they do? They grab 7 more spirits and throw a party in your brain, man. And next thing you know, like I say, you hallucinate, man. You're going crazy. So we have to understand that we have to understand how important, how integral it is to make sure we understand that this is a spiritual battle. Like, it's not physical, it's not carnal. But fighting these spirits, fighting these demons is something spiritual. And that spiritual thing is the law. Like Yahweh Shai, we go to multiple precepts on how Yahweh Shai went to the law, fighting these different spirits. Actually, let's get a couple. All right, I'm gonna come back to Mark. It's like Luke. Actually, I want to get Matthew real quick. Because this is what these spirits do, man. think it's Matthew the 12th chapter. With multiple spirits that come on you. When multiple spirits come on you if you're not on fire. Let me start at verse. We'll start at verse 39. I'm gonna start at verse. Man, I'll try to cut it short. I got a couple more precepts. We got short time remaining. We'll start at verse 38. It says, "Then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we will see a sign from thee. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it but the sign of the prophet Jonas. As far as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation and shall condemn it. But they repented at the preaching of Jonas, and behold, a greater than Jonas is here," talking about Yahushua. It says, "The queen of the south shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it. For she came from the uttermost parts of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, a greater than Solomon is here." When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, right, he walketh through dry places seeking rest and findeth none. Right, so when you get done, fighting these spirits, hey, guess what? They leave, right? But if your spirit is not continuing to, stay on fire and it's just flickering, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna come back, and guess what? They're gonna bring 7 more spirits to corrupt your mind, to corrupt your brain, to give you these hallucinations and all these, different doctrines that's gonna confound you and toss you to and fro. It says, verse 44. Then he saith, I will, this is what the spirit says, the demons say, then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he has come, he finds it empty, right? Why is it empty? Because you're not on fire. You playing with the Lord, your light is flickering, right? You lukewarm. It says, swept and garnished. Then he goeth and he taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. Hey, so Ray, you might have this damn slothful spirit. Then guess what? If you continue to be slothful, you're not applying the precepts, he might bring a fornication spirit, a drunken spirit, a depression spirit. You might want to kill yourself spirit. You're talking back and you're cussing out your family spirit. Hey, he said more wicked 7 wicked spirits, which is a number of completion. We don't know how many it is, but 7 more spirits more wicked than him. And they enter in and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Damn, that's cold-blooded. And so, that just goes to show you, hey, you think you was in a bad state initially? Hey, when these 7 different spirits come, hey, you ready to hang yourself. It says, in the last state of the man is worse than the first. So how you are at the last, hey, you worse than how you was in the beginning. You ready to slit your wrist, you ready to slit your throat, and you ready to risk it all. Because you're not on fire. You're not applying the precepts. You're being slothful. It says, even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. And we see that now, how wicked this generation. Hey, this is the generation right here that y'all wish I was talking about. Right? This is that generation. Right? That's evil and wicked, and that has to, the Lord has given us the ability to fight these precepts. And we have to understand how, and that's what the the Lord gave us power to fight these demons, and we have to understand how to do that with the precepts. Book of Romans, the book of Luke, chapter 9, verse number 1. It reads, and he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power and authority over all devils and to cure diseases. See that? So the Lord, guess what? He gave his disciples power and authority over all devils to cure diseases. Hey, how much more? How much more us? When he told us, Peter, to go and feed my sheep, and Peter felt Peter taught the whole church. Right? He sent them to preach the kingdom of Yahweh and to heal the sick. Again, so guess what? We're doing the same thing. The Lord gave us that same power. And that's why we got to understand we got the same power that Yahweh Shai had. We just have to have faith and believe and apply the precepts. Right? Let's get a couple. Let's go to the book of Matthew 4:1. Because when Yahweh Shai was on the roof, I'm just like when Yahweh Shai was being tempted on the mountain, guess what? He had Satan himself come up to him. And guess what Yahweh Shai did? And he applied the precepts. It says, I'm starting verse 1, it says, then Yahweh Shai led up of the spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward hunger. So Yahweh Shai, he was in the wilderness and he was tempted of the spirit. Right? And he fasted, it says, and a tempter came to him. He said, if thou be the son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread. Right? And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you get the gist. Yahweh Shai, he shows you how to deal with these spirits. First he fasted, right? I'm gonna drop down to verse 10, just to show you a couple precepts that he went to. So verse 10, it says, then said Yahweh Shai to him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. So the Lord, he went to the law, right? It was that, where's this found? Exodus 20:3. So Yahweh Shai, what? Applying precepts. Yahweh Shai is applying precepts to deal with Satan. And that's what we got to do. Verse 3. See that? Verse 20, Exodus 20:3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Right? And so Yahweh Shai, again, is applying precepts to how to deal with these spirits. Let's get a couple more. All right, let's drop down to verse. Actually, let's go to verse number 7. Matthew 4:7. It says, Yahweh Shai said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Where is that found? Deuteronomy 6:16. Right? Deuteronomy 6:16. Right? Same thing, and you drop down to verse 14. That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people which sat in darkness saw great light, and through them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. So again, you can go to Isaiah 9:1-2 for that precept. So when you read verse 10, verse 10, he said, that's going to Exodus 20:3, that's the precept. Verse 11, he says, then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Right? And this is how you deal with these spirits. They'll leave when you apply the precepts. Right? And again, it's all about how you're dealing with different demons and in their manner. Again, dealing with these demons and spirits, man, you have to have faith. You have to believe. Let's get a couple more to close out. Look at 1 John chapter 5, verse 14. It says, and this is the confidence that we had again, and this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he heareth us. And so the Most High give you anything, man. If you have confidence, he gonna hear you. You can't be bumbling around and asking your kids, hey, please be quiet. Hey, can you settle down? No, man. It has to put some bass in your voice. Act like you got a pair. Have some confidence, man. Just like these basketball players and baseball players, news reporters, hey, they got confidence when they're going out there. You got to have confidence out there when you're going to teach the words of the Lord, man. It's the same thing when you're fighting these spirits and fighting these devils, man. It's like in 1 second. One second, Arjun. right? So you got to know how to deal with these things, man. You got to have faith and you got to believe, right? Well, let me get finished reading this. 1 second. Hey, yeah, hey, the Lord said, hey, man, you got to know how to deal with these spirits, man. Again, can't be no pushover. Can't be no pushover fighting these spirits. Hey, the Lord said in the book of Matthew, hey, you gotta have faith. Faith as a grain of mustard seed, man. Let's Matthew. Let's get there real quick. And the Lord said you can do anything if you have faith, man. Let's see that. I'll slack you. Damn, moving too fast. Let's see. Let's see. It started at verse 18. It says, "And Yahushua rebuked the devil and departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour." Then the disciples of Yahushua fell apart and said, "Why could not we cast him out?" And Yahushua said unto him, "Because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, you have faith as a grain of mustard seed. You shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you." See that? So you got to understand, man, you have to have faith. You got to have faith in this thing, right? Let's look at the book of James. You got to have faith and confidence. That's key, man. Without those things, faith is a gift. Right, James 1:5. If any of you lack wisdom, right, it says, let him ask of Yahweh. I give it to all men liberally and upbraid not, and it shall be given. And it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. Meaning, nothing wavering, meaning you can't be, having doubts. You don't want to be doubtful, right? It says having faith. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. So if you don't have faith, man, you're just gonna be like a ball being tossed to and fro. Right? Let's get a couple more. Let's look at Acts chapter 19. Right, so this is when Yahushua was, I'm a slack you, this is when Apostle Paul was teaching in the synagogue, and he was dealing with these the seven brothers and the men that were vagabonds. So let's get this. It says, and when he went to the synagogue and spake boldly for the space of 3 months, disputing and persuading the things concerning the kingdom of Yahweh, but when divers were hardened and believed not, but spake evil of that way before the multitude, he departed from them and separated the disciples, disputing daily in the school of one tyrant. And I'm going to drop down to verse 12. And so that from his body were brought unto the sick handkerchiefs or aprons, and the diseases departed from them, and the evil spirits went out of them. Right. So this is when Paul was performing miracles. The evil spirits went out of them. That's first. When you read verse 13, let's see what happened with the Jews who were vagabonds, and these were exorcists, meaning they were doing things magic on the left hand side, like sorcery. So verse 13 it says, the certain of the vagabond Jews, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits the name of the Lord Yahushua. The name of the Lord Yahushua, saying, we adjure you by Yahushua who Paul preacheth. And there were 7 sons of one Sceva, a Jew, and the chief priest, which did so. Right? Which did so. And the evil spirit answered and said, Yahushua I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? You see that? So the evil spirit said, hey, no, look, we know Yahushua, we know Paul, and we deal with him. They cast us out, they kick us out all the time. But you with this damn exorcist, you casting out, trying to cast us out on the left-hand side, speaking Yahushua? No. He said, hey, who are you? It says, and the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them and overcame them and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of the house naked and wounded. And see that? So these spirits, hey, they left right off of those, off that man and went on to these other spirits, off to the other man. So you got to understand, hey man, if you're doing casting out things on the left hand side, hey, you're not gonna defeat these spirits either, right? It's the last one. Right, again, this is how you deal with these spirits, man. This is how you deal with demons and this truth, man. I'm gonna start at Ephesians 6, verse number 10. Okay, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that ye may be able to stand up against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of this darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Like this is what we're dealing with, man. We're dealing with all of these different, we're dealing with Esau, we're dealing with the, these uh, supervisors and Edomites at their job, spirits that hop on us and brothers and family members. Right? These are these different principalities and rulers and darkness of the world. It's spiritual wickedness in high places. Right? I'm gonna drop down to verse 16. Actually, man, it's a lot on here, but for the sake of time, drop down to verse 16. It says, above all, taking the shield of faith. Again, you got to have faith when dealing with these spirits, taking the shield of faith, when we shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. So when you're dealing with these demons, right, you're gonna have the shield of faith is gonna protect you as they coming towards you like a dart. It said, and take the helmet of salvation, right, and the sword of the spirit, which is the word of God. Praying always. See that? Again, this is another key component of fighting spirits and demons. Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that there I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. Again, so you gotta speak boldly, man. You come in and fight these spirits, man. It ain't no half-assing, man. You gotta come speak boldly, man. Have some faith, have some confidence. All right, let me get the last one. Oh yeah. Last one. Salakia. All right, that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up. And with that, Lord willing, you brothers and sisters was edified.